Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Inside Furman Athletics. I am Dan Scott. This is take two. Last week, we were actually doing this and then had a computer malfunction. Jason Donnelly, athletic director, is here. Marcus McMorris, Furman standout and our sideline reporter for a number of years, works in the software industry, and he calls most of the issues they run into in computer picnic, problem in chair, not in computer. So
he's putting it on you?
Well, you know, it was partially my fault. It partially wasn't my fault, but ultimately I have to take responsibility. But we're here now, and everything is good. How are you?
I'm great. You know, I'm actually, what a difference a week can make. This time last week, we'd just come off the loss with Wofford. So I was not in as good a mood, and I don't think our fan base was in a good mood. It's always a tough one coming off of that. But this week is awesome, coming off of homecoming weekend, which was fantastic. So many alumni came back. We had a packed crowd Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. We hosted 5 different games at home. Our compliance officer said it great. We were undefeated. And I said, what about Alabama? He goes, exhibition. I said, oh, yeah, we were undefeated. We won in everything. We had a great football win over Citadel. Love that we played Furman football in that game, the way that we executed, the way that we tackled, the way that we ran the ball, the way that we typically do things. It felt like Furman football. And even the miscues, you know, that was a part of a game plan. You know, it just it felt great. The soccer game Saturday night, for those of you that were able to join, was incredible. We retired Doug Allison's jersey. He had the Quinn game before the game. He had hundreds of soccer alumni come back from all around the globe. People flew in from England and all over the country to join him. They went out late Saturday night. Then on Sunday, volleyball had a great win. They had 2 sweeps this past week, but they swept their match on Saturday evening. Women's soccer with a huge win over Citadel positions them for the playoffs to get a bye. They'll go on the road this week with a big game on Friday. And men's basketball opened up Timmons Arena. So we're just very proud of the programs. We're very grateful for the support, and it was a really great weekend.
What do we want to start with the unveiling of Timmons? I know when we were doing this last week, you were talking about that night you were going to go actually do a live run-through of everything. Yeah. And so Sunday happened, packed. I had to park in the grass way out of way because of the number of people that were there. Was outstanding. And I walked different areas of the arena since we weren't doing the radio broadcast, and just kind of got a feel of what the fans were saying and what they were looking at, and even went up to the suite level. It was phenomenal. From your standpoint, though, logistically, how did everything go?
Logistically went great. You know, we've been working towards this moment for a long time. There's years of planning. There's years of fundraising. There's years of construction and execution that goes into that. You know, also a great compliment to Nate Oates in Alabama for taking that game. Says a lot about them, their competitiveness, their character in that environment, particularly when they're down early in the game and we're playing great. But I was so happy and pleased, again, with everyone's faces and the spaces that they were occupying around the concourse, seeing the joy, packed with students. Students were out there at 10 a.m. waiting for tickets. They packed the student section, and the standing room only had 600 students that showed up for the game, which was incredible. The fans and coming through the building and talking with our staff today, and them looking at all the different spaces, the concessions, sales, and the TV feed, and all the details. And knowing also as you go through this, we knew going into this there was a lot of details that we're still going to improve. We spent all last week in the building on every last detail, from ribbon boards to video boards and the parking process, knowing that some of these things aren't even where we're going to be or what we want them to be. The ribbon boards, an example. You know, there's a point where, like, hey, we can't get this to sync up to do this, to do that, and that's exactly why you have an exhibition game. And in the future, there will be time and score, and there'll be marketing messages, and there'll be different things. And we just said, hey, just do what works for now. Go through that process of doing the things that work right now. Parking be another example. We had to go through a process even going into it. So, okay, we know that parking is going to be a barrier for this game, so we have to figure out what we can do for now, and we're going to figure out what we'll do when we get into the season as we go through it, working with the students to get them in the building and understand how all of that. But I couldn't have been happier with the environment, with the turnout, with the support, to open up your building with a sellout against a top 15 team that could potentially be a Final Four team. And, Bob's team did a great job competing on the floor. And, again, he's got stuff, too, they're going to clean up, things they're going to work on and get better at. But what I'd want people to know is if you look at the process of the building in terms of the front to end, the building got funded, through tremendous support. And it's a donor-funded building. It doesn't mean every dollar comes from donations, but the institution's invested as well. But you got donors who drove this forward, and the university is supporting the areas that they need to support as a part of a donor-funded building. You got a building that got done on time. We opened the building for a ribbon cutting strategically during Convocation Weekend because we knew that this building was going to be accessed. We want people to see it. We didn't want to hold everybody out till October 26th, but we've been using the building, and we've been growing into it, and we've slowly started to have different events, and eventually we'll have more public-facing events as we get in there. The building is done on budget, and that's one of the hugest things about this is that we did not exceed cost. We met the expectations of the institution. We had great partnership with Harper Construction, with Dimensional Innovations, with Ken Betch and Associates to get that done. And when you get done on budget, it means that you had a plan. You were able to execute that plan exactly where we needed to be. And there's more we're going to do. There's more things that we want to do. But for what we were able to do and capable of doing, we're able to do it. And it meets the needs of the larger community. One of the things that we want people to know is that the building is built to be a basketball arena, but it's also intended to be a convocation center of different ways. And we have the ability, and we've already done this already. We've had some events in there. We had a band in there and dancing with our donors. We've had a celebration of life of Raymond Newsom, a funeral and a reception for him. We've had a volleyball reception there with all their alumni, and we're just getting into the spaces that we want to execute. We're going to have regular season for basketball and women's basketball. Eventually volleyball will play there. We've got concerts planned. We got special events planned. We got university events planned. And we have a plan to keep growing. And the biggest thing that we'd want people to understand in addition to the experience is that at some point, institutions need revenue drivers that allow you to help support the needs of your department. And revenue is such an important part of that process. And when people are invested in an athletic department, this is where you see things go. And we only really have two sports that support revenue. It's football and basketball. And that's why sometimes what I want the public to know is that we are fully committed to our athletic model of what we're doing. We're having tremendous success on the field, in the classroom, in fundraising, in revenue generation, in engagement. We got the right people. We got the right process. And none of this there's no competition from one to the next. It's not football versus basketball. It's football and basketball driving revenue. It's the remainder of our sports that serve the mission and are competing for championships, which puts us in a great spot. And all these things are going really well for us. So we're really happy with where we are, and we're proud of what we're doing. And if you look at this fall as an example, men's soccer is having a phenomenal season. They're ranked at the top of our conference. They're ranked nationally. Women's soccer's had a really strong season. They've had a couple of ties recently, which I'm trying to figure out soccer, is that good or bad? But they've had a really good season. Volleyball's having a phenomenal season. Michelle Young's having a resurgence in her space of what she's been doing with a team that's very athletic, very competitive. Cross country competes for their 13th straight championship on the men's and women's side this Saturday in Tryon, North Carolina. And football's right where it needs to be right now, coming out of that Citadel game, playing the way that we're capable of doing. And they're going to have ups and downs in their journey. And if you look at the larger landscape of college football as a whole, everyone's going through journeys and changes in terms of where programs are adapting to a modern era of college athletics. So things are all over the place.
Yeah, which I know that's where we're going to get into in a moment. But I have to remind myself, especially after you got off to the 4-1 start and then the two little hiccups before the Citadel win, 70 to 75% of Clay's roster is still redshirt sophomore and under. This is a young football team.
Yeah. And you got a young football team, and it making no excuses on what takes place.
No.
The only time we've really had a thumping was that Western Carolina game. That's a game where we're like, all right, we are just not here the way that we're capable of being.
Yeah, we thumped ourselves as much as they thumped us with 5 turnovers. So.
Yeah, and that was his message in the locker room after the Wofford game. Like the Wofford game, we did not take care of business. Like we did not execute. We threw the ball away. We allowed them to score on turnovers. He told them in the locker room, he goes, I believe in you. I believe in this program. But if you turn the ball over 8 times in 2 games, you can't win. And he goes, it's just the reality of what we've got to do is we've got to come together as a team. We can't worry about what we don't have and injuries and all the different things that take place. But you look at the difference with an Evan James out there on Saturday versus Citadel. Like sometimes you got to have your weapons. And for me, it's perspective that I have as an athletic director from the experiences I had as a coach when I was coaching basketball. I was fortunate enough to be a part of a program that out of 14 years, we went to the NCAA tournament 13 years, won national championships, won Big East championships, Final Fours. But the one year when all of our point guards got hurt and all of our players got hurt, we weren't as good as coaches.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works, isn't it?
But it was one of those things you had to go through to say, okay, we're really good at what we do, but if you don't have your players, you're not always good a coach. And that's why one thing that people take for granted sometimes is, I always say it all the time in our department, you can never take winning for granted, and you can never take health for granted.
Right.
Because either one of those things can go away very quickly and make you feel differently about where you're at. And I'm very proud of Clay and the program. I'm also very excited for Clay in the program that you have a redemption opportunity here against Mercer coming in here. You've got a top 15 opponent coming into Paladins Stadium. They just beat VMI 62-0. They're obviously talented and equipped to win this conference. Here's your opportunity. And you get a chance to go out there and execute and play. And, yes, we want to compete to win the championship in the Southern Conference year in, year out. The reality of doing that is a hard thing to do. So in the history of Furman football, we've won it many times, but we don't win it every time. But this is one of those games where it would be great to put a loss on Mercer and come out and execute the way that we are to show that we're capable of being Southern Conference champions in the space that we're in. And that's our opportunity that's ahead of us in this game.
I know we've on a little bit of a limited time run today, so before we get to the fan questions that were submitted last week, I just wanted to circle back because I think every time you're on, we need to address the NCAA landscape because every time you're on, something has changed. And we're talking about how well things are going in the athletic department here for Furman, and yet at the same time, that doesn't belie the fact that there are significant challenges out there for everybody, particularly for schools at our level. So from your standpoint, what's the latest on the NCAA landscape and address the challenges that we are facing right now?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to speak with our Board of Trustees about this about 2 weeks ago, and the hardest part for everyone to understand is that if you read the news, what's going on in college athletics, you may think one thing, and we may be in a different place with that. And the reason I say that is that a lot of the things that you see out there are what I would call tip of the spear type challenges. The things that Clemson or Florida, you see LSU or Penn State, they're going through different things in their journey. When you talk about revenue share of $20 million in NIL, and you look at what Texas A&M is doing, and they what the rumors are about that roster, and how much money has been invested around it. So the model is changing. But what I'd want our fans to know is that the biggest challenge we have as an institution is actually not the college athletics landscape. It is the higher education landscape. And our president, our board, our senior administration is spending all of their time trying to get their arms around what this is for Furman, what this is in the larger sector. When you look at all these changes in demographic and discount rate and net tuition and how you construct a class. And the biggest challenge you have at Furman is adapting to actually higher ed landscape of where does a small private liberal arts school fit in, and how do we keep the prestige of the institution while also pushing forward with a business model and a plan to build enrollment and to have the right number of students to balance all those other things out. And what's encouraging is that the president, administration, board have got a really clear plan that came out of this Bain process. And what's encouraging is that process also acknowledged the importance of athletics in that athletics brings incredible value to our campus and brings incredible value to our alumni and is having great success and all the metrics that we would want to be evaluated on are taking place. And then also an opportunity for us to help them with a growth strategy. How do we grow revenue? How do we grow student enrollment? How do we grow opportunities? So all those things are positive. So when you look at the larger landscape, you got to look at it that the greatest challenge Furman has is actually Furman's challenge is what it calls enrollment, because everything else here is going great. Homecoming weekend shows you that the affinity, the energy, the positivity, the togetherness, all those things are going really, really well across the institution. And points of emphasis as a part of that process have been dictated in a positive way. The second challenge is college athletics, of where is this headed? And I've been saying this to people for a while, but if you wrote a book about it, and there will be books about it, and there'll be 30 for 30 documentaries about it in the future, and let's just say it's taking place over a 10-year span of time, like we're right in the middle. Like we're at the point where the book opens and you're right smack in the middle. So there's a lot of changes going on around us, which causes Furman, the Southern Conference, Division I athletics to try to figure out where we fit in. And again, we have a very strong understanding of who we are and what our model is, so we know what we're doing. But then we have to learn to adjust and adapt to those things. So the thing that I think would probably give me the most heartburn thinking about moving forward is how do we continue to adapt to name, image, and likeness and revenue share at a school of this size and scale where the resources just aren't available at the level that they may be at a bigger school. And you got to look at if Clemson or Virginia or, South Carolina is doing $20 million in revenue share. Well, if that's our budget, we just can't do that. And if you take it down a level and you look at JMU and you look at App State and you look at, all right, they're trying to do $10 million over 3 years, and then you got the Big East is making a big push, and the Atlantic 10's a minimum of $3 million, so you got that next level up. And then you get schools of our size and scale, and how do we compete in that space? So some of the challenge for us is to continue to adapt and adjust, to figure out what's most important, how do we go through that process, and to know that right now we're at a point where we've got to adapt and adjust and continue to advocate for resources, because resources have been the challenge. So that's when you get to level 3 of the challenge, which is Furman, which we are well supported here. We have great support from our president and our board who believe in what we do. We've got great support from our alumni and our donors who support what we do. And then the challenge is, how do you have enough resources to allow you to continue to compete at a championship level while still needing to fundraise at the highest possible level? And that's just where we are. And then one of the things that comes up, and this comes up with all of our coaches, is that, when you can't increase your budgets and you're where you are, sometimes people think, well, it's an athletics thing. It's actually not an athletics thing. It's a Furman thing. Furman's budgets across the board can't increase unless we have more students, more enrollment, more revenue. So it's not us. It's the whole institution. So the institution has got to work together to get to the place where we can be, where we can begin to advance those things, increase those things. And I go back to Coach Morgan Wooten, and a high tide lifts all boats, and we all go uptown together. We have a responsibility to bring the brand value with athletics that allows us to rise, an academic value, campus value, and enrollment value. So the best way to explain it is it's like a puzzle, and every piece matters, and every piece has got to lift the boat so that we can get to the point where the tide rises for the institution, and the institution can benefit and be more secure. But there's nothing out there that scares me or worries me. There's no pieces of a plan that don't include us. Rather, we are a central part of the plan. And going through that process last year validated that, which gave me more confidence coming back for this year. Because last year was stressful. Last year I was like, I don't really know where this is going to wind up. But now I know, and what I also know is that the only way for us to go from here to being more improved is to continue to increase our resources so we can continue to compete at the highest possible level. That's the next step of the puzzle.
Sounds so simple.
I wish. And that's the thing. It's like, one of my best friends and I were on the phone yesterday, and I told him, I said, everything here is going great. We just got one nugget we got to crack for us to allow us to get there, and it's just a resource nugget. It's not the people, it's not the process, it's not the pride, it's not those other things, and not where we fit, and it's not any one group versus another. It's all about doing all of this in concert together and believing where we are of where this is. And and I'm looking out the window, we're looking at the Furman football equipment truck that's out there, and I think the challenge sometimes with our football base that's hard is they're probably looking at Montana, or the Dakotas, And what we have to be honest with ourselves about is that there's a big difference between state institutions right now and private institutions with football and where we are in that journey. You know, if you look at the most successful schools at the highest possible level, the majority of them, with the exception of Notre Dame, are public institutions. It's geared towards that for economies of scale. In the FCS, it's the same challenge, is that you have the Dakotas and the Montanas, all of which we're comfortable competing against. Like we had Montana beat in that game, you know, at their place with an opportunity to come back here and host a semifinal against the Dakotas here. So we're right there, but we have to differentiate ourselves as a private school versus a public school in terms of how it fits for FCS football. That's one challenge in that space that we've got to work through. It's just like with basketball is a different challenge. Basketball as a private school may be more manageable in that space because you don't have the resource allocation that a football has at a private school. But then as a private school, you've got an NIL challenge. You don't necessarily have the ability at scale that you'd have at a state school. So one of the challenges, for example, in NIL, our state competitors in our conference, the Chattanoogas, the ETSUs, the Western Carolinas, UNC Greensboro, they're receiving state funding that allows them to fund growth. We don't at the private school. So you've got to figure out what are our advantages and how do we remain competitive in that space while not saying that we're losing to the state schools because we offer things that they don't have. And right now they can offer things that we don't have. So when you have this North Carolina State Lottery funding NIL for North Carolina, NC State, for UNC Greensboro, for Western Carolina, like it's a great advantage for them.
Yep.
You know, and so we've all just got to keep adjusting to what this is, and at the same time remain convicted in what we're trying to do here with our programs, which is to me is just really special. And you're around our football team and basketball team in your role, and you get to see how great these coaches are and these student athletes are and the experiences. And Clay said it in the locker room after the Wofford game, for as disappointed he was, he goes, I would not trade this group for any other group. That these are the kids I want to coach. This is what I want to be around. And I also know from coaches around the league that this is a place people want to be is at Furman, the opportunity to coach at an institution like this, but it has challenges.
Yeah.
We got to work through it.
Well, having said that, do you want to move on to some questions?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go there. The first one we had said, are there any plans in place for what to do with the $1 million donation given in honor of the '85 championship football team?
Absolutely. Now, what a great gift, and I will keep the donor's name out of this because they wish to be anonymous, and they were here as a part of the '85 reunion. They have been supportive of the institution in the past, and they wanted to support the program. And that program gift will go directly to the program operations, the program support directly to support Clay and the needs he has for the program. That's by design. That's through conversation. That's exactly what Clay needs. It's exactly what the donor wants to do. And that'll help support the things that we do at the program that we want to do at a competitive excellence level. So couldn't be more excited about that gift and what that does for Clay. We have other donors who give it a very significant level, maybe not at that level, that do very similar things for Clay and for the program. And right now the greatest need around the program is continue to support the operations of the program, the salaries, the excellence of the program, the things that Clay believes are important for the team and the staff that allows him to do that. We'll continue to invest resources into the capital. You know, that this Pierce Horton building, every time I walk in here, I'm blown away at how awesome this building is. But we continue to invest in the stadium, and whether that's this turf, or it's the lights, or if it's the sound system, or if it's the seating, or it's the game day environment, we'll continue to do all those things. And a few years back, we are open to increasing capital projects for football. But I will tell you that right now the greatest need is actually the operations of the program and funding the things that take place on a fungible level for the program is the greatest need. But that gift will go towards that.
By the way, you mentioned the lights, and I was here last week as they were installing and the big cranes and the guys were pulling all the cable here. Were we just showing off on Saturday when we had those incredible lights on during the middle of the afternoon?
You know,
I mean, because they were bright.
Yeah.
On a sunny afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, and the old lights, the coaches will tell you they couldn't even see their call sheets down on the field without the temporary lights coming in. And now with what we've got up there, that was amazing.
And we've been trying to get the lights fixed for a number of years. Like, we go to every season off season and look at what we can fix and how we can go about it. And we targeted, the sound system went out. We had to fix that, and it's been fixed. And then there's always issues that come with that, but it's been fixed. But then the lights is something we were trying to target actually before this season to get done. And you're going through the process of trying to get the right bid, the right price, the right process. You're trying to gather resources to get it done. And we just got very fortunate. We got the right bid, the right process, the right partner to do this, and they are incredible. So Josh Basha, who led this from our facility standpoint, keeps sending me pictures, and it doesn't even look like the same stadium when we're on at night. So it's a major upgrade. It's a major improvement. And I think they were showing off a little bit with what they are, but we've needed this, and now this allows us to now host games and competitions at a different time. And again, people don't always know how you get it all done, but we've been raising money and we've been driving revenue in other spaces, which allows us to do this and allows us to grow. And it puts our stadium in a really good spot. I know that conversations come up all the time, like what are we doing on the visiting side and how do we get the cameras back this way? All those things we want to do as well. But Clay and I talk about these things. At some point, you got to look at what's worth changing and what's worth waiting on as you go through a process. So what you want to have is a first-class game day environment, and you want to have a plan to build into things as you go forward into them, but you also got to hit them at the right time, at the right space. And these lights, as an example, we got a great price on the rights. We got a great bid on the right lights, and they said we can put them in for you right now, and that's part of that process. We hit them at the right time, so that's why they're coming in.
Yeah, and for fans who nobody's really seen it yet because we haven't played a night game, but they also have the colored LED lights, which allow you to put on the little flashing light shows and do other things.
We knew they'd be ready by the Mercer game. We even debated should we play the game at night, and we're going to stick with the schedule that we have, but it's gives us flexibility to do things. 2 years ago or a year ago, we got offered a game on a really good time on a weekday evening that would have been a great made-for-TV game, and I was open to it. Clay was open to it. The visiting team did not want to move, but we would have had an ESPN audience for a night game for that. And you got a coach and an AD that want to do it. You got a fan base that support it. A huge game opportunity, and the visiting team wasn't able to move or didn't want to move, but one of the challenges is the lights. If you don't have the ability to show the game at the level it needs to be, then you can't do that quality. But we're excited to have the optionality and, again, to continue to get things fixed so it gets done right.
All right. I just threw that one in there, just looking out across the stadium when you mentioned that. What's the largest single donation ever received from a single former player? And person who submitted this question just cited the $50 million received this month at Stanford by a former Stanford player. We could use one of those.
We could use one of those. Yeah, and believe it or not, that's something that our development team's working on, is to try to acquire those gifts. I think it's all relative to the way you look at it. To be clear, the largest gift from a former student athlete is actually Chris Bork. So, and he being track and field, cross country has been the most generous alumnus. So you have one person that didn't play football or basketball that's giving back at a substantial level. So he would be the largest athletics alumnus. We obviously have other donors who maybe have not played sports that have given at an incredibly high level to athletics as well. I don't know the exact number for football, but it's in the range of $1 million from alumni that have given back, which is a phenomenal gift. I thought it was interesting as a part of the Timmons research when I was looking at this that there was 9 different gifts of $1 million or more during that time, several of which were from basketball alumni, which I think says a lot about their giving and their capacity. But a $1 million gift from anyone to your institution is just a tremendous gift to give back. So this particular anonymous gift is in that category. It's in that range. But the largest gift from an alumnus that played athletics here is Chris Bork for cross-country track and field.
All right, moving on. Have you seen the proposal that USA Soccer has made? They're trying to get college soccer to basically blow up its model, play from the fall through the spring, completely redo the way that they're doing the championships, actually have an upper division and a lower division in 4 regions around the country. Have you seen it? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly interesting. I think there's a lot of details that need to get worked out. And I think depending on who you ask, some people are adamantly in support of it and some people are adamantly against it. So it's one of those polarizing topics that is interesting for us to evaluate. We're not against it. We're not for it. We're trying to learn more about it. And it's interesting because this could blow up college soccer the way it is in terms of how people are positioned and what it is. It could also improve college soccer, in certain ways. And we're certainly on the bubble with this, meaning that we're good enough to be included, but that might not be the best direction for us to go. And what you can imagine, it's kind of like the European soccer model where you got relegation and you can move up, you can move down.
Right.
So many programs would be at the top of this and others would not be in it. So the reward is if you're at the top of it, well, then you'd be included in this level. But what are the resources that are going towards that? And the risk is to be relegated down and you're not in it. And that could be the risk that you don't get your automatic bid, which keeps you out of the NCAAs. So this is something we have been talking about with our soccer coaches, with our commissioner, with others. I think it's a little bit of a wait and see. USA Soccer is talking about reorganizing in general, and it really has, to be honest with you, nothing to do with the colleges. And that's where sometimes people don't know this, but a good friend of mine owns one of the MLS soccer teams, is a big donor that I've worked with in the past. And he said flat out, he goes, this isn't about college. This is about the pros and them creating a club model from the ground up where they would own the players and their rights the way that it would be in Europe. And college is kind of stuck in the middle. So they're trying to figure out how does this all work with the top-down, bottom-up approach with regions and clubs and different pieces of this. So I think what USA Soccer is, they're adjusting a bit to try to create a landscape that may or may not fit with the NCAA model. So I think you're just seeing, again, a change that is happening with changes in the NCAA. It's going to be really interesting to see how this goes through. Some of the logistics of it, we would have no problem with our team playing year-round. That's not an issue for us. That's not something that we would hold back on, whether it's a fall sport or an all-year-round sport. Just the challenges around it is what does the model look like? What are you playing into, and what are you giving up to be a part of it?
Right.
Would be some of the challenges. So I think what's unique for us with Furman is our soccer program has been competitive enough that it is something we can consider. But at the same time, we've got to look at, does this position us to actually be better, or does this put us in a worse spot? Because the one challenge you have when you bring all great programs together, some teams will be at the top, some teams will be at the bottom. We need to make sure, where do we fit into that spectrum in terms of what's the best interest of Furman? How does it fit with the Southern Conference? How does it all play out? So I would say this college soccer proposal for us right now is a wait and see. And we've just been sharing information, talking more about it and learning more about it. But it's interesting. It's polarizing. Some people love it and some people hate it, and there's really no middle. So we're trying to learn more about what position we'd have in that space.
And that led into the natural segue into the next question, and that's the legacy of Doug Allison here at Furman.
Man, he's amazing. I love Doug as a coach. I love him as a friend. I love him as a husband and father. But most importantly, I love him for the way that he has led the men in his program for the last 30 years. Total winner. These athletes that have played for him, they've had a bond with him that goes well beyond coaching. It shows with everyone that came back that was a part of that ceremony. Doug's just a great leader of men. I said it in my remarks when we were on the field and we retired his jersey, and the greatest compliment to him is he's been a maker of men. He's had so many values and so many lessons, and he's taught so many things that there's such a affinity for Doug and what he's accomplished at Furman. And he leaves here as a Hall of Famer. He'll get in the Hall of Fame this year, and he's just been incredible. We've been very fortunate to keep Doug. Doug certainly had overtures from schools outside. I was aware of it with South Carolina. I just found out about it with Clemson years ago before I got here. So he made a decision to make his career here at Furman. But his legacy is strong and intact, and he'll leave here as one of, if not the most accomplished soccer coach in the Southern Conference.
Yeah.
And he's great. And then, on a personal side, I still think Doug's got a lot left in the tank. So this isn't Doug leaving because he's done coaching. It's just that he's at a point in his life where he wants to prioritize his family overseas. He wants to prioritize his children that are growing up. He wants to prioritize time with his wife, who's getting ready to retire. So he's at a point in his life where he's ready to make this transition. But Doug could keep coaching I tease him all the time. Every time he walks in the office, I said, "You want that 5-year contract? Because we'd keep you around." He's got a lot left to give. but he's at a point where he's ready to do that. And then Doug will still engage with Furman at a high level. We're going to figure out what that means for him based on what he's interested in doing moving forward. But I would imagine him continue to have a legacy with the program and stay connected to it. And I think that's one of the beauties of Furman is that you see these legendary coaches like a Paul Scarpa, Debbie Southern, Dick Sheridan, Bobby Johnson. They just stay connected, and it's such a great legacy to stay connected.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get to figure out what they want to do with that. And it'll be interesting as Doug goes through this process, figure out what he wants to do and how connected he wants to be. But we have a clear succession plan in place, and we've got a clear path to where we're going next with the program. So we're very excited about that. And we're spending all of our time now honoring Doug and his legacy on the field. And this could wind up being like a storybook ending for him. Who knows where this is going to go?
Yeah.
But, if they get that automatic, they're in the NCAAs, and they may, based on numbers, they may already qualify to be an at-large. And then the latest information I got is they may be an at-large and be able to host. So, I mean, they're in a great spot heading into the end of this year, and it's just been exciting. But Doug's legacy is strong and intact.
If built today, and we need to hurry here. If built today, what range would the price tag be to construct a basketball practice facility attached to Timmons?
It would be about $10 million to do it right. And you can certainly do something less and maybe scale down the cost, or you could do something more and scale up the cost. But I think a basketball practice facility addition to Timmons Arena would be estimated around $10 million. Similarly, football has had some projects they've looked at, practice facilities as well, $10 million. So if anyone is interested and you want to jump in here with us, we'd love to talk to you more about it. But it's on the list of things that we will continue to consider both for basketball and football. And really, we're spending some of our time also, if those that are interested, in some of our women's sports facilities need some attention. Like, we're blessed with incredible basketball, football, golf, tennis, cross country. There's soccer's got great facilities, but with some needs. We're looking at improvements there. But we're going to be working on a little bit of a women's initiative on some things we want to improve with some of our other teams that deserve some attention and some resources. But about $10 million for the practice facility is probably a rough number that I could give for the way that we want to do it and do it right. And it's not urgent at the moment, but it's available as an opportunity if we're ready to go, and we certainly would love to get it done sooner than later.
Right. I suspect this next question was asked somewhat in frustration after losses to Western Carolina and Wofford, but I still think it's worth looking at. Plans to improve Furman football. Of course, you want to improve everything that's going on.
Yeah. We have to keep the focus with Furman football on the goals, and the goals are very clear. It's to be the best FCS team in the state of South Carolina. It's to compete year in, year out for a Southern Conference championship. It's compete for FCS playoff berths and an opportunity to become a national championship program. None of those things have changed. The challenge will continue to be resources on an annual basis to support the program moving forward. We've got to continue to, graduate and do all the work academically of their program we're doing. They're doing a phenomenal job, above a 3.0, and everyone's graduating. We got to continue to drive revenue and fundraising through the program, through the game day experience, and through the fundraising that's there. We got to continue to build upon the experiences we've already built with our game day experience, where we're seeing more people than ever support football. So all of those things are in place. Resources dictate our ability to make changes when you look at a stadium, or our ability to make changes when you look at a program. But we're not taking our eye off the ball of where we expect to be and where we should be. Again, this year is an example of that. We're going to have a winning season, but winning is not enough at Furman. Winning for Furman is to compete for Southern Conference championship and FCS playoff berth. That's where we want to be, where we expect to be, and that's where Clay has the program designed to be. And one or two losses aside this year, we'd be right there. So we got to continue to, number one, finish the season strong here, address the needs that we have moving forward. We got to prepare for, at some point, Clay will move on, a succession plan around football. And whether that's in-house or that's going outside of the program, those are the things we got to figure out. But we need to continue to have the emphasis on the program for what we want it to be at the highest possible level. And what I would tell you is that we're in a day and age right now where you get to that point, like if you had extra money, what would you do with that extra money if resources weren't the issue? A lot of that right now may be directed more towards human capital rather than physical capital based on the challenges around us when we talk about NIL, when we talk about rev share, when we talk about investment in a program. We got to figure those things out for where we go. But for where we're positioned right now with program resources, with fundraising, with facilities, and with emphasis on football on our campus, we're in a really good spot to achieve our goals, and we got to continue to achieve our goals both in football and all of our sports.
Every question, every challenge, part of the answer has been and will continue to be resources.
100%. And it's been resources since I got here.
Right.
And it's not what I wish for Furman is that this wasn't the challenge, but you can't beat a school with 2,500 students and not have a resource challenge. And that's where the reality of it has got to kick in for everyone, where you got to say, okay, this is just the model that we've got to apply to be successful here. And then the vision is to get to the point where it's so successful that you've got to support an institution because you believe in the value that it brings back for the institution as a driver. So the one thing I like about that Bain plan is they're acknowledging that athletics is a big piece of this campus culture, about this affinity, about this vibrancy. And I just tell you, I mean, the family weekend and homecoming weekend here were amazing with people and energy. And then that's the goal. You got to keep building on that. And that's part of this push. And I've been a part of FCS football before, so this isn't unlike other institutions that are competing for a championship, for an FCS playoff berth. We've just got to keep investing. And I wish there was a pot of money that you could draw upon, and that would be wonderful for all of us. But if the money was available, we know what we would do, and we'd have to continue to upscale our revenue sports to allow us to compete at the highest possible level.
Well, and I led into that to lead into our final question, which I think is a good one. Do you feel that the university as a whole, not just the athletic department, but the entire university, has taken advantage of the exposure it got from beating Virginia in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago?
90% yes. I would say that we maximized during that period of time in 2023 the ability to promote Furman University at the highest possible level. $41 million in earned media value, which means you don't receive the money, but that you have exposure, advertising exposure, brand recognition, name recognition. We saw increase in applications. We saw Furman #1 in academics. We saw in the NCAA poll, when you put it all together, we've seen incredible increases in fundraising. We just built a brand new building. We've got a brand that's really special when it comes to athletics and academic excellence that get great exposure. The only place that we missed is we just didn't have the enrollment opportunity. We had admissions had gone up, but during that period of time in the process of higher ed, we did not get the class that we were capable of getting during that period of time. So we did the part to get it out there, and then it's the part of yielding the students that are going to come to Furman and figure that out. And that's what led to this study last year, is that if you're doing all these things really well as an institution, what is it that you're not doing well that allows you to yield the students to be able to come to Furman to then have the full benefit of this? So I would say if you look back on 2023 and everything that came out of that and all the positives that came out of it, and there's so many, we hit on almost all of them, but we didn't yield the class to give us the opportunity to have the boom and growth. Now, in fairness to Furman, when I got here, was decidingly making it smaller. So if you get a strategy out there where you're using size as a strategy to be smaller, it's really hard to turn the ship. It's like a cruise ship. It takes time to get it back where you're going to go. You can't be nimble. So some of the strategies before that led to that not achieving that final goal. We clearly had the applications. We clearly had the exposure. We clearly had the affinity and all those things. We just didn't capitalize on that one opportunity to really drive it. Now, if we can drive it now, then yeah, then you could say, hey, it 100% was worth it. But I would say 90% of what we wanted to accomplish got done during that period of time.
That's the end of the questions. Is there anything else on your agenda you want to cover?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask this upcoming Saturday that our fans consider 2 opportunities, and you can do both of them. Please join us if you can. Tryon, North Carolina. Our men's and women's cross-country teams compete for their 13th straight championships. If you can join us there, I believe there's an alumni event, all different things going up there. But if you can join us to compete for championship there, Saturday morning, 10 a.m., 10:45. That would be amazing. And then please join us here, 2 o'clock on Saturday versus Mercer. A huge game for our football program, and would love to come away with some big wins on that Saturday. And then after that, we're back into regular season basketball games and crossover season. We'll keep you very busy, Dan.
Yes, November is going to be fun.
But that's all. But thank you for everything, and excited about what's ahead of us.
Well, that sounds good. Appreciate your time, and thanks for understanding the computer issue last week.
No problem.
We will say goodbye, be back with another edition of Inside Furman Athletics next week, and then we'll let you know the next time that Jason Donnelly is scheduled to be with us. Until next week, for Jason and all of us at Furman, I'm Dan Scott. God bless you, and so long, everybody.